Welcome back to the late day wrap up, of which we have plenty to discuss from not yesterday's, but this morning's Bitcoin short-term time frame analysis. Of course, going to be following up on all of the major indices in the U.S. markets as well, and a little bit of DXY and some gold action here too. So with that said, I would like to wish you the best and the happiest, and let's jump into it right now with the most pertinent thing actually starting on DXY. More importantly, as we did identify that the reversal is looking like it is very much in progress, and I would actually stick with that as it does continue to look like it's in motion right here, right now. So technically speaking, I do want to see one of two things. Either DXY take out the prior high, which was in early February, right around about 91.5 bucks, or on a weekly close above 91 bucks even. If it can do one of those two things, I would be looking at this one as likely to take the next major leg up to a little bit above 92 bucks, whether it's 92 and a quarter or 92 and a half. Don't really have a strong opinion on that, as I am generally going to be bullish on it for the next probably next few weeks, if anything. And that means that that's going to put downwards pressure on anything that trades against the dollar, naturally speaking. Doesn't mean that everything's just going to blindly go down, of course, but it does mean that certainly the weaker ones within this market will be going down or having much more of a difficult time staying up, and the stronger ones likely do survive and put in some corrective moves here, which is going to very much fit into the higher term time frame analysis on major US markets and a little bit of on Bitcoin here too. So with that said, we did just speak about this on the weekly right here. Yes, targeted regions would be based off the measure move on this region right here, and also the big bad breakdown that we did see from November of 2020. And remember, this is very much in line with what we have seen on macro lows on DXY for the last 30 years that we have history for, all of them taking about a little over 3 months. And what do you know, just as DXY gets into this territory for literally month number 3, hey, not the time for fucking dishes, Jesus. It's dish time, baby. Perfect, fucking perfect. It's always just lovely. Anyways, my girlfriend's great. She's really, really awesome. But holy shit, those damn dishes, they're really loud. Anyways, yes, so I would be looking at that targeted region, which again is going to put downwards pressure on pretty much everything else. We also do have some regular bullish divergence coming off the lows from 1-2 stabs coming off the August lows, and then also, of course, this low structure right here that we're kind of putting in January, February, and March, of course. So with all of that in mind, I do think that this is really threatening to break out like this month, as we have said, and maybe even this week, as this is looking pretty damn good right now. Momentum also just obviously pointed northwards. We do see daily RSI getting back around testing the bullish control zone, and we do see that this is putting in a constructive leg going all the way back from about September to where we're at right now. So I do look at this as very, 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 very likely to make that next leg up, probably somewhere around the 200 simple and 200 exponential average, which is around that 92 and a half region. So I do like those regions. And we can now check in on regular U.S. markets, which we'll go with NASDAQ first. Someone asked me to look at NDX over NQ today. We can do that. I think that this is very obviously a continuation breakdown here off of the head and shoulders reversal formation, and I still stick with my lower targets of somewhere around 12,350 for the next sort of bouncy bounce territory, and then below that I'd be looking for a move towards about 12,100ish or 12,150 and a potential reversal within that region. That would actually put that at around about a 10% correction, I believe. Something like this is what I'm looking for, and that's very much historically relevant for traditional markets. Similar to Bitcoin taking those like 30 to 40% retracements in its bull markets, you can kind of do the same thing for traditional markets right around here. So I do ultimately think that this likely provides an opportunity long term. Obviously, we have major time frame moving averages coming around that region here too. Monthly has got the 10 simple right at the lower echelon of the $12,000 region. So I do look at that as a very, very strong area for, at the very least, a balanced potential reversal long term. Technically speaking, though, there is some issues here on the monthly, as we do actually have bearish divergence of what would be 1, 2, 3 stabs if we do confirm this is a high, which I would say is already confirmed as a high, as we take out the January, not February, but January low right here at 12,537. Today, getting down to 12,523 and a half. So I do look at that as pretty much already happening, and continuation to the downside over this next month, very, very likely. So with that in mind, for the short-term time frames, does that mean much of anything? I mean, it's just continuation here. I don't really see anything of particular interest. And again, NASDAQ really leading the rest of the markets. So yesterday and today we came in and we said, hey, NASDAQ's being very obvious right now. NASDAQ looks very obviously like it wants to go back down to its lows at about 12.7, 12.8. And then we saw continuation below those. And that's what was kind of driving the biases on all of the other assets that we typically look at here, which was more or less to the bearish side. And that leads us into our SPY analysis, of course, which is doing basically the same thing, as you can see. Now, it's not as bad. It's not looking as as bad as NASDAQ right now, but I'd essentially be looking for a very similar move, likely down towards about 37.25-ish region over the next like month or so. Just works its way down, and this has been a very controlled, very gradual bring down of price action here. So to me, again, very much within the context of a constructive constructive behavior essentially. So that does put into the bias that long term likely does turn into a major opportunity. But for now, at least very likely in March, maybe also the month afterwards, which I believe is April, probably some more downside as it does put in time going sideways and down here. And if we want to look at Dow Jones as well, we can do the same thing. And again, not as bad as the other two, to be fair, but I don't think that this one's going to, be green dealing its way while the other two are putting in some corrective legs. So daily and weekly both look like they have some downside. Downside targets for Dow Jones would be somewhere around the low $30,000 region. If we go down to the very low term time frames right here, you can see another rejection. Also moving average switching into a bearish posturing as well. So I would be looking for this one to retest. What was this? Yesterday's low? Yeah, I think, or sorry, actually this was this morning's low, but somewhere around this region at about $31,000, just below $31,000, and probably tries another short-term bounce there, and then follows the rest of the market down southwards. As I do think that this takes a while. I mean, we've been going straight to the fucking moon for years now. It would be good to have a bit of a bit of a normal correction. So with that in mind, let's go check out Goldie. Where's my Goldilocks? Where are you? Seriously, where I can never fucking find you. There we go. Hey, found it. All right, did we hit that 1700 target once again? Oh my god, we did. Holy shit. Every once in a while, that TA mumbo jumbo, that TA fucking hocus pocus, sometimes it actually works. But here's what's next on the TA hocus pocus astrology meme machine, and that would be this. Death Cross is coming in line for the daily, pretty much inevitably, unless we see about a $150 rally plus within the next 2 days. It will happen. It will inevitably happen. So I'm talking between the green 55 and the purple 200 right here. And while I probably would be looking for a bounce off just below 1700, and I'm talking like 1690 to 1680-ish region, that bounce very likely does get sold into. So technically speaking, I'm still looking for a little bit more downside, very similar to what we said yesterday. And it actually looks like it wants to bounce a little bit right here, to be fair. But it is putting in a bit of a descending triangle, which is a bearish redistribution pattern on the lows. As you can see, this one is obviously not relevant for this time frame, and that would have a measure move further south, which we can populate right now, which should probably be around that 1680-ish target if I had to guess. I'm just doing a bad drawing right now, but I just want to see. And what do you know? Yep, that's right around 1690 actually. So I would be looking somewhere around 1690-ish region for a bit of a bounce to kind of test maybe around the death cross. And then if we see any sort of a rejection like later on this month, I'd probably drive those targets much lower towards, I don't know, where would our next weekly levels be? I mean, to be fair, it's very likely to bounce here first, so I don't think it's even relevant to talk about, but probably like we'll get to that one if and when it does happen. Bounce is more relevant first, and I fear that like some person's going to hear me talk about that right now. It's like, well, first things are going to bounce, and then it's like, then probably later on this month, yeah, we do see another drive down. But for now, more or less closer to a bounce than not. Probably does have another run at about just below 1700, and then we'll pick it back up from there. Okay, so that leads us into Bitcoin time. Is it Bitcoin time already? I think it's Bitcoin time. All right, let's go check out Bitcoin. So we said on this morning's video that based off of NAVs and Bitcoin's kind of swing failure pattern right here above $52,000 for that small stint yesterday, very likely Bitcoin does come back down, and we have seen yet again another downside move, a couple $1,000 down from this morning's high of just under $5,100, coming all the way down to low of 48,500-ish region, of which that was quite the trade actually. And as we do kind of hover around this region, I do look for Bitcoin to essentially trade sideways in the same way that we're seeing in NASDAQ, and then come a little bit lower. Bounce territories along the way, of course, as nothing is just straight line to the downside. We did say at this morning's video, likely a bounce somewhere a little bit above $48,000. I think that we've kind of already seen that region. The next highlighted region I'd put in the charts is actually just another $1,000 below there, which is exactly where we put in that higher low that we saw on 2nd of March. Again, probably a short-term time frame bounce right around there, but ultimately I do think that Bitcoin will likely put in another leg down somewhere around the 200 simple and 200 exponential average, which are a little bit hovering above $45,000. How long does this take? Probably sometime a little bit later this week, which we're actually already on Thursday. So I don't know, perhaps either later this week or early next week, something like that. And again, I'm not really looking for like any sort of dastardly nasty red dildo party. I'm just looking for a gradual, constructive, and just kind of sideways and down market, for the next few weeks. Again, in line with what we see in Dixie, in line with what we see in NASDAQ, NASDAQ and all the major US indices as well. So I do think that things are more or less lining up for further continuation to the downside. Lower term timeframes are kind of in a bit of a conundrum right now. We do see that 4-hour Stokes obviously very much still angled to the south side. In fact, even gaining momentum to the south side. We see that 4-hour RSI is kind of losing its luster here too, but more importantly, getting rejected from the bullish control zone. Long term, I don't really have any major issues with this. Long term, it's actually quite fine, but short term and medium term, I would be looking for, again, this one to kind of fill out the neutral zone and once again test the bearish control zone over the, probably over these next week or two. Looking at the 3-hour, what do we see right here? Same shit, very, very similar chart right now, except this one a little bit more obviously downside twisted. And we do see the same thing on the buy hourly, I believe, with buy hourly Stokes getting way the fuck down there. Also breaking the relevant trend line that we spoke about on this morning's video, which was another indication that Bitcoin was going to come back down a little bit further south, verifying that analysis. And then the hourly, I believe, is kind of flip-flopping around currently. So that does lead me to believe that Bitcoin's going to have, its bounces along the way, as it typically does. And because we are dealing with big numbers, those bounces can be, $1,000, $2,000 like we saw this morning, but it doesn't really mean all that much. It's kind of what I want to make sure that I am clear with, because in the greater context of the market structure, it's just, it's just not really doing anything that is particularly like changing the bias. I mean, at the end of the day, what would change the bias here? Well, of course, coming back above yesterday's kind of trappy high, if you want to call it that, 51,500, or coming back above this blue box territory right here, obviously would be very bullish. But as long as that's not happening, I do look at this as more or less an accumulation range between about 51 and 45. Bitcoin probably plays that out for a little bit of time and then chooses a direction like later this month, so to speak. And I still do favor the upside long term, but I do think that lower term timeframes are quite well, you can decide for yourself. I won't put my words on that one. When we go to the medium-term timeframes, I think it becomes a little more clear that Bitcoin is more or less angled to the downside here. We do see that 12-hour Stokes getting a little bit tired around the edge of the bullish control zone. That typically is a nice sort of stop and reverse point, especially looking at Bitcoin seemingly putting in a bit of a high right here yesterday too. So I would look for that to be the next signal and this next daily closure, which is also going to be a 12-hour closure as well, to identify if it actually does cross the downside or really hints at a cross to the downside. Very likely next targeted region will be somewhere around about 45, 46,000 bucks, something like that. And then again, probably another bounce territory around those regions, which we'll likely discuss during tomorrow's live stream. But I think we're getting a little bit too ahead of ourselves right now. Obviously, I do want to point this out too. There is one thing that's actually really concerning to me, and that would be the 3-day jewel sell signal, of which we are getting a really, 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 really good one right here. So I do want to point this out. These signals in the past, when we see them on spot price action, especially because we haven't really seen too many on CME, but when we see them on spot price action, they typically take a couple of weeks to play out. And right now we got the signal, I would say, pretty much confirmed on the last tick, or second to last tick, and that was right around here. So that happened basically on the end of February. So it could still take another couple weeks for this one to really play out. And your general target's gonna be somewhere right around the 21 exponential average. Guess where that is? That's actually low 40,000 bucks. It naturally is gonna be flying up over the next successive closures, obviously, but that also does play into the analysis that we did look at on the secondary charts for the Trollinger bands, of which I do want to briefly point this out because this is still relevant, and that would be that the topside Trollinger bands have been tested 100% of the time, every fucking time that we do see a closure above them over the long term. And we're talking about a history here of 11 plus years. So that is pretty good data, I would say. And the topside Trollinger band right now is currently sitting at low 40,000 bucks. And if we go to the bi-monthly, which has actually the exact same signature here, albeit, a little bit less, of a workable history, to be fair, we do still see the same thing. And that level would be at about 39,000 bucks. So anywhere around there long term, and obviously it will get dragged up over time, would still be relevant to be keeping an eye on, I'd say. Now, of course, Bitcoin can test the topside Trollinger band on the monthly or extension by the bi-monthly one of two ways. It either comes down and literally tests it, or it gets pulled up so high, meaning that, Bitcoin got up to about $60,000 plus, and then the topside Trollinger band would naturally be pulled up as well, because it is a reactive indicator, and then it just naturally be testing the $45,000 low thus far. Do I have an opinion on which one's going to happen? Not really, no, but that does make me that does still put in the bias, at least for myself, that I'm interested in, I'm interested in Bitcoin at the mid $40,000 region. And if it comes down to the low $40,000 region, that'd be great too. So with all of that said, I think we've absolutely beat this fucking horse to death today. This horse is dead as fuck right now, I'd say. And realistically, I don't really, I'm just looking for a bit of sideways and down here. More or less, I don't really have any reason to be like immediately bullish on Bitcoin price action, as long as it is below this last 4-hour high, right around 51,500-ish region. And if we do look at the higher term timeframes, meaning that I'd be looking for Bitcoin to like retest the prior all-time high and very likely make new all-time highs, maybe even gun for that $6,000 level, of which that would be the next targeted region. I'd be looking at this area right here, right around about 55,000 bucks on a 4-hour closure, or a daily above 54,000 bucks right here. So I'm referencing the blue box territory. And then again, targeted regions would be, if we can bring it up right here and put back on the drawing tools, that'd be your 3-spot extension right around 62,000 bucks. So you can kind of see that this is going to be more or less of a long game. And, for the most part on YouTube, right, people are always making these headlines and whatnot. And I do the same shit too. Like, Bitcoin is going crazy today. Or, if you don't watch this video, Bitcoin's going to fucking die a horrible, fiery death. It's like, what's more or less likely this, these next couple weeks is Bitcoin plays out of range and goes sideways and kind of bores the shit out of a lot of people. So with that said, I would like to wish you the best in this nice boredom sandpaper range. Take care, and until next time.